Hello and welcome. Very good evening. You're watching the Urban Debate with me, Afrida Ali. Well, the Shiromani Akali Dal has exited the NDA alliance. It's a 23-year-old alliance that has come to an end over what the Akali Dal says centre's refusal to give legislative guarantees to protect the minimum support price, or the MSP. So the highest decision-making body of the Shiromani Akali Dal decided late last night to exit the alliance. It was a unanimous decision taken by the members of the Akali Dal to pull out of the BJP-led NDA. This meeting was presided over by SAD President Tuhin Singh Badal. Like I said, this is a decades-old alliance that has now come to an end. At state level, the coalition of the Akali Dal and the BJP was formed way back in 1997 during the state elections. At the centre, the Akali Dal joined the BJP-led coalition in 1998, and it has been with it since then until now, when the ties have snapped. According to the official statement of the Shiromani Akali Dal, Mr. Tuhin Singh Badal said that on the agricultural marketing reforms brought by the BJP government, they are lethal and disastrous for the already beleaguered farmers. The bills, viewers would now recall, has become the law. They're no longer bills, they have become law of the land since the president has given his assent to the 3 farm bills, making it a legitimate legislation to be followed in this country. To discuss this entire exit of the Akali Dal from the BJP-led NDA, I have with me Maheshinder Singh Grewal, Senior Vice President and Spokesperson of the Shiromani Akali Dal. I have Tuhin Sinha, Spokesperson of the BJP, joining me, and also Neerja Chowdhury, Senior Journalist. I welcome all of you. Thanks for joining me here on the Urban Debate. I want to go across to Mr. Maheshinder Singh Grewal first. Mr. Grewal, the fact of the matter is we have strong reactions already now coming in since you've announced the decision. And one of the important reactions have come from the current Chief Minister of Punjab, Captain Harsimrat Singh, who says that this was a political compulsion. There was actually nothing left for the Akali Dal to do, because you lost your position as the primary opposition in the state and you couldn't have afforded to lose the farmers' vote bank. And therefore, if you had continued with the BJP, your political fortunes would be jeopardized. Is that the real reason, Mr. Grewal, that you had to exit the NDA alliance as a political compulsion?
Frida, this is totally wrong. It's a misconception on the part of the Chief Minister. The hard reality and fact is that actually the Congress betrayed the Punjab and the Punjab farmer. Akalis were kept in dark by the government of India and as well as by the state government when in 2019, the government of India formed a committee of 7 chief ministers, which included 2 Congress chief ministers, one from Punjab and another from Madhya Pradesh, for seeking their views for enactment of these ordinances. It is very unfortunate that the Punjab government never took the Punjab peasantry and the Punjabis into confidence about the going on meetings with the NDA government. Now, Akali Dal had been only not for power. Had Akali Dal only fought for powers and not for principles, the Akali Dal would have been power in Punjab since 1975 when Mrs. Indira Gandhi imposed emergency. She arrested all the political leaders of the rest of the country except the state of Punjab. And she made a clear offer to the Punjab Akali Dal leadership that you rule Punjab, but you don't oppose me in the emergency. But 20 days after the imposition of emergency, Akali Dal Working Committee decided to fight for principle and not for power. And they spent 19 months in the jails, which forced Mrs. Indira Gandhi to lift the emergency. I want to ask one thing very clearly from Captain Harsimrat Singh ji, that in 2008 and 2011, when their government was in power, in center, why they tried to bring all these legislation which today Modi government brought, they couldn't succeed only because it was a coalition and the allies never supported. But Mr. Kapil Sibal very vehemently supported this law in the parliament. And same question BJP has also to answer, that when Kapil Sibal argued for enactment of this law,
No, Mr. Grewal, it's
Sushma
known to
Swaraj,
everyone that in the initial stages you did not oppose the bills. It was only after you sensed the farmers' opinion on it that this was unfavorable, that the farmers are not in favor of the bills. It was only after you sensed it very strongly that you decided to take up the cause, because the ordinances were promulgated way back in June. We did not hear very strong voices from the Akali Dal at that time. I'll come back to you. Let me get in Mr. Tuhin
Frida,
Sinha
I can
also
just
to talk
answer it.
about this,
I
because
can
this
just
is an
answer it.
alliance that has failed. Ms.
I
No,
can
I'll
just,
come back to you. Let me take the opening
okay.
comments, and
Thank you,
therefore I
thank you,
leave
thank
you
you, thank
to
you.
think about it so that I can come back to you on that point. Mr. Tuhin Sinha, this is an alliance that has failed. This is, if I'm not mistaken, the third ally to have jumped ship. Can the NDA afford to lose allies in this manner? Is the concept of NDA itself have become a failed concept? Because we hear now that the allies are never consulted. There is no NDA, so to speak. The decisions are only taken by the BJP. The allies are expected to fall in line. Harsimrat Kaur says an alliance that turns a deaf ear to its oldest ally and a blind eye to the pleas of those who feed the nation is no longer in the interest of Punjab. And that is what she has to say in defense of taking this decision.
Well, Afrida, the decision of the Akali Dal to pull out of NDA is certainly unfortunate and stems out of a misunderstanding which we still believe will be sorted out in due course. Having said that, let me remind you that in the 2019 elections, we had at least 20 alliance partners across the country. Yes, most of them were small partners, but then yes, that also suited us. Now, in Bihar, we have seen an example of Janata Dal United having pulled out of NDA in the past, but today we have the best of relationship with them. Even in the last general election, we had a 50-50 seats sharing ratio, and we are going into an election in the next 1 month with the best of understanding. Now, my simple point is, do you really think we would risk going into these Bihar elections with these farm reforms if they were really anti-farmers? We have taken a big risk because we are convinced and we know for a fact that most of the farmers are backing these reforms. And if you actually look at the merits of it, reforms are a teething process. They take time for the best results to show. But I think we need to go beyond vote banks at this point. And my plea to Akali Dal is, maybe a few months might be a tedious process when it comes to implementing the reforms. But we all know the larger benefits of it. When you free the farmers from the fetters which had been imposed by them through successive Congress regimes, they stand to gain every which way, whether it is better competitive pricing, whether it is better storage facilities, which hopefully will be enabled by the entry of the private sector, and multiple other benefits. So I think this is a time when the Akali Dal, I would appeal to them to take a larger view. If farmers do have a misunderstanding, we should ideally reach out to the farmers in Punjab together, clarify the misunderstanding.
Okay, so you are saying this is a misunderstanding. From June up to October, almost October now, you had enough time to resolve these differences. One wonders why that was not done. However, of course, the bills have now become a law. Let me bring in Neerja at this point. There are two points that Tuhin Sinha made here. Firstly, it seems the BJP has not given up on the Akali Dal. From what I could gather, Mr. Sinha is saying that we hope to resolve issues and they'll be probably back in the fold just like JDU has. And secondly, he says this is definitely in the farmers' interest and we are confident about it. Why would we take a decision like this ahead of Bihar? Your comments, Neerja.
Well, obviously the BJP has a certain position. The Akalis do not agree with it. And it is true that the Akalis to begin with went along with the government position. They may have expressed their reservations, as Harsimrat Badal has said, that within the government she brought the reservations to the attention of the government. But of course, no notice was paid to it. Now, I think, number one, there's nothing wrong with parties to respond to ground level pressure. obviously the Akalis have taken a particular view, even gone to the extent of pulling out of the NDA because they sense ground level pressure from their constituencies. So also does the Congress party. So, and there's nothing wrong. That's what political parties are supposed to do. They are supposed to represent the views of their constituents. Secondly, what Mr. Sinha is saying is a very interesting thing. It's interesting to note that the BJP has not hammered the Akali Dals for deserting it. They may be hopeful that they'll come back, but it may well suit both the BJP and the Akali Dal to go their separate ways at the moment in Punjab. With elections due in 2022, the BJP represents the Hindu constituency in the towns of Punjab. The Akali base is in the rural countryside. And in the last 3.5 years, the Akalis were simply not picking up support at all. Now, with this new issue of the farmers, it is possible that they may get traction again in the countryside. And if you have a four-way contest in 2022 with the Congress, Akalis, BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party fighting separately, there's a good chance that the Akalis may mop up seats, the BJP may mop up seats, nobody may get a majority, and the Akalis and BJP may come together again to be able to form a government. So politically speaking, it's a very intelligent strategy, it seems to me, to go it alone and also to be representing, to be seen to be representing the interests of the farmers. That is the Akali base. So it makes eminent sense. And as the Akali leaders themselves are saying, we've got laddus in both hands at the moment, given this issue that's come our way.
Okay. So that part is clear, Neerja. One quick word also on what would the BJP have to lose in this, because even for the NDA, they are still left with 13 allies and a total of 334 MPs. So is this a small price to pay for the BJP as well? You're saying this is a political strategy that may work well for the Akali Dal. What about the BJP? Is it likely to hurt them in any way at all?
I was taking off from what Mr. Sinha was saying, and I was agreeing. I was taking it a step further. But, yes, nationally for the Akalis to pull out one more ally, yes, not a good signal. But the BJP is moving very strategically. State of the state, they want to capture power. They've got their strategy in place in Bihar. They've got their strategy in place in Bengal. And this Punjab coming up 2 years down, 1.5 years down the line in February 22. So what will give them, what will yield the dividends is what they're going for. And overall, yes. And of course, it's very interesting that this talk between Mr. Sanjay Raut and Devendra Fadnavis in Bombay yesterday. Now, you don't go to a public place in a hotel and in front of everybody, have this talk when there's been so much tutu meme between the two parties. So you're obviously signaling something. Could it be that the Sena can return to the BJP fold, to the NDA fold? We don't know. A lot of things are today in a state of flux.
Which is why no permanent friends and foes in politics.
That's right.
Yes, we need to watch it very carefully. Yes, Mr. Grewal, the point that Neerja is making is that this might be a very well-crafted political strategy, keeping 2022 in mind. How do you respond to that? And, in terms of whether this is working towards the farmers' interests or not, I also want to ask you that, is it really the farmers' cause that you're upholding, or is it more the cause of the middlemen and the commission agents whose interest is actually hurt the most with the private players coming in, isn't it?
Frida, two things my friend from BJP has to answer to the nation. First, when 2011, this bill was brought by the Congress, we have a video of Madam Sushma Swaraj, who is no more. She said that this bill is against the farmer. The commission agent is a ATM of the farmer. He, whenever and if he needs money, he goes to the commission agent. Why it was that strange in 2011, and what is their change in the circumstances after 2011 to 2020? Second thing I must say that what Madam Neerja has said, There is no politics involved in this. The BJP is bound to be the sufferer for two reasons. See, on the national scene, the two important minorities, the Muslims and the Christians, have shaken their faith in the present system. It was only the Sikh minority represented by the Shiromani Akali Dal which stood with the BJP and NDA, which again has been shaken, and situation was created to this extent that they had to walk out. Afrida, I will just take your 1 minute. In 1996, Akali Dal fought elections with BSP, but after results, when we got 9 seats, BSP got 3 seats and Congress 1 seat. We should have not joined or supported Atal Bihari Vajpayee. But in the fitness of the circumstances, since Akali Dal, after Operation Blue Star, even can't think of going to the Congress, we supported Atal Bihari Vajpayee unconditionally, knowing fully well that he has got only 172 seats and 16 seats of the Shiv Sena. We supported him. The government fell on the floor of the house. But our unconditional support after 2 years resulted into support by 28 other parties to the NDA led by Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. That was real NDA because Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Sardar Prakash Singh Badal are the creators of NDA of 1996. And Vajpayee Sahib used to take NDA into confidence of
Let me get Mr.
before every
Sinha to
issue.
respond to that. Okay. Right. Mr. Sinha, this is a very different BJP is what Mr. Grewal is perhaps saying. This is not the BJP of Mr. Vajpayee anymore, and also the change in position that is being raised from earlier to now. I want to ask you one question away from the politics, that because since that is the main bone of contention for the Shiromani Akali Dal as well, how does the government plan to retain the MSP without a legal sanctity being given? What does it expect a farmer to do if he is not given an MSP? Is he supposed to, he cannot approach this issue legally. If he goes to a court of law, he will be told that this is not there as part of the as part of the law as such. It was never there in the bill. So what is a farmer supposed to do if he doesn't get his MSP without the legal sanctity? The Akali Dal has a very fair point when it says that this is something that you should have incorporated. It's not just your opposition parties anymore. It's your allies now that are jumping ship because of this issue.
You know, if you look at the track record of the last 6 years, and in fact on your last show last week, and I had mentioned the specific increase in the price of cereals, in the MSP of cereals across the last 6 years. So, you know, I think our performance when it comes to the farm sector speaks for itself. And over a period of time, like I said, there was a certain hurry in enacting these bills this time, because in a span of around 9 days, we managed to enact about 18 or 19 bills. But in a subsequent session of parliament, the Akali Dal and others are free to bring about a legislation to bring up, to make the suitable changes. I think for a start, this is an incredible bill. It paves the way for the kind of reforms which the farm sector has been deprived of in the last 7 decades. And to answer my friend from Akali Dal, yes, this is a different BJP. Why is it different? Because never has BJP been so proactively in the reformist mode. In fact, after the passage of the Farms Bill, if immediately we went in for landmark labor reforms, and we also took a decision to go in for medical education reforms. So the pace of reforms is what makes it a different BJP from the BJP in the past, and that is something which the alliance partners also need to keep pace with and support.
Okay. All right. Let me ask Neerja a last question. Neerja, I would like to give you the last word on this, because, we want to know whether there is real intent for reform, or are the farmers simply being made political fodder and political capital? Is the opposition and the allies like Akali Dal being status quoist? Because we know that the existing system has not been foolproof. So if the government wants to open out markets, if it wants to bring out private players for the sake of higher price for the farmers, what is wrong with it? What is the brouhaha about? And is there real intent, you think? Because the way the government has pushed through the bills is again has raised questions. If they were so confident, why didn't they hear the opposition out? Why was it passed in Rajya Sabha through a voice vote?
See, it is possible that the government is going in for reform, but it's a reform that can be very lopsided, may help the creamy layer, not the large sections of ordinary smallholding farmers. That is where the opposition is coming from. And as far as the Akalis are concerned, whether it's the Artiyas or the farmers or the land labor, you know, the rural constituency that they have represented, they are against it. And that is a constituency, the Artiyas, who've given the political funding, the commission agents and all. So it's a complete nexus. You know, it is the whole interest behind the Akalis. So they are responding to that opinion very naturally, just as the sugar industry in Western Maharashtra supports those parties that are active there. So every party has its base. Now, I think the point is that why is it that if such an old ally of the BJP had such strong reservations, why could the whole thing not have gone to a select committee? Why could a few months, 2, 3, 4 months not have been given to that? What was the hurry to push through? I don't understand that. And particularly, you know, instead of getting rid of your allies, as you say, this is the third ally that's gone, and in the larger interest, is there a good thing to go in for? That is incomprehensible to me, why the BJP was in such a hurry. It's not a matter of, you know, it's talking about a 1991 moment for Indian agriculture, and you've got to take everybody along, particularly your allies. So you could have waited 2, 3 months and sent it to a select committee. And certainly, as you're saying, why not include, give a legal legitimacy to the whole concept of MSP? Because the Prime Minister is saying we're going to continue with it. But the farmers don't believe that is going to happen. So this, even if it's a communication gap with the farmers, why not take a little time to get across to them effectively? Why bulldoze it through? That is the incomprehensible part.
Right. Primarily, the government is arguing that the mandi system, the existing system,
can I take 1 minute?
Is a liability. The mandi system is a liability, and therefore, then okay, very quickly, just 30 seconds, Mr. Grewal. Quickly, I need to wrap up.
I just wanted to endorse what you said. Mr. Modi, as a Chief Minister of Gujarat, headed a committee of the Chief Ministers. And Mr. Modi himself recommended in 2011 that MSP should have a statutory power. Why can't they are not giving it now when he's in a position to do it? Second thing, I must reply to Mr. Sinha. They have crushed the Punjabi language in Jammu Kashmir also.
That's exactly the question Neerja was pointing out, and we continue to ask. But absolutely. But was the existing system working efficiently? Perhaps not. But will the new system work? Only time can tell. And unfortunately, we'll have to leave it at that for now. Thanks for joining this debate and discussion, Mr. Maheshinder Singh Grewal, Tuhin Sinha and Neerja Chowdhury. Thanks for joining us and sharing your valuable inputs on the subject.